Hello, my name is Kiriath, and today we're going to talk a little bit about Astartes, which is the fan-made project, the fan-made animation, which is 4 episodes out of 5, I believe, and the 4th one came out yesterday. And first of all, if you haven't watched it yet, you should go and watch it right now. The whole thing. I'll link the playlist in the description down below. I would actually suggest you go and watch it and then come back to this video, because, well, you need to see it first. I'm not going to stick footage of it in this video, I'm going to use stills, but to be honest, the episodes are short enough that you can get away with just watching and then coming back if you want to, and to be honest, a lot of the stuff that I want to talk about is ruined by my presence, frankly. You know, if you want to talk about lighting, like just the way that the guy's done the different scenes and how atmospheric it is, nothing spoils the atmosphere of something than having this like over the top of it or in the corner of it or talking over it, because sound is another big part of atmosphere, and it's something that they've absolutely nailed. And also, I don't know how to make it. I've got no idea where you even start making something like Astartes. I have no clue about animation at all. I know nothing of it, and so it feels a little bit weird taking that and kind of going, I like your stuff so much that I'm going to put it in my video and then talk all over it. I don't know. In this specific instance, I think due to the length, the passion, the quality, all of that stuff, it doesn't feel quite right to me. So there will be stills occasionally. There's one specific still that I'm going to use in this because it's, I think, my favourite shot / depiction / picture of a Space Marine ever. Like, genuinely that good. So, why do I like it so much? Why is it so unbelievably effective at what it does? I think there's a few different things. I mean, the atmosphere I've already mentioned, but the atmosphere is a huge part of it. The sound design is really spot on. There's very little in the way of like extraneous noise or kind of an oversaturation of sounds or anything like that. It's used in a way to emphasize things. There's not too much in the way of like background hum or anything like that. Even though you're on a ship, you can hear footsteps and you can hear gunfire and you can hear impacts, and there's like this nice kind of ambient sound in the background here and there, but it's also percussive and it just emphasizes the action and very little else, which I really, really like. It pairs really well with the fact that quite a lot of it is dark, as in lack of light dark. In some stuff, things being dark is not great. I mean, let's use, for example, what was it? It's the long night episode of Game of Thrones where they fight the Night King. I mean, I'm not going to throw any spoilers in case somehow you haven't already been spoiled or haven't watched it, but that episode of that show was dark. And I don't mean in terms of, oh, that's depressing dark. I mean it was just pitch fucking black. You could not see a goddamn thing. And it suffered for it because you had no bloody idea what was happening at any given point. It was like, oh, I've heard that this is like the longest on-screen battle ever recorded. It'd be great if I could see some of it. That's an example of using like darkness in a crap way. Using it in a good way, I think Astartes is one of those fantastic examples of how to use darkness in the best possible way. It's used as an emphasis, almost. It's used to set up light and very little else. There's a couple of different shots that work so well because it is just a brief flash of light in the darkness. Usually, again, muzzle flashes. There's a couple of scenes in particular, like Space Marines moving out of the way of an RPG of some kind. It explodes behind them. The screen is pitch black for a moment, and then you just see 3 silhouetted, power-armoured figures walking as an explosion lights up behind them, and then the screen's black again. It's that use of it for emphasis and showing, I guess, just how unstoppable the Astartes really are. I think it's the same episode where, again, there is a moment of pitch black on the screen, and then you get 2 flashes of light, and that's all you get for that scene, because the 2 flashes of light are the muzzle flash from a bolter just obliterating a dude at close range. That's all it is. It's such a good use of it, and it builds on the atmosphere that the sound already, has set in place. And it does so much to build, I guess, the actual dread that you should expect to get from seeing Space Marines do what they do. One of the things I like most about it is the fact that I think sometimes it's easy to overlook that Space Marines are genetically engineered superhuman soldiers. I know that sounds daft because that's what they are and that's what they're described as all the time. But as I think in the vast majority of like mental images, when you picture a Space Marine, it's, you know, vast areas of open combat. It's more Dawn of War cinematic and less Astartes. But they are perfectly capable of doing what they do in Astartes. And in fact, Astartes, I think, does a better job of showing just an innate skill and ability than a lot of other stuff that represents Space Marines in a lot of forms of media. It is awesome to think about the idea of the Space Wolves, you know, covered in wolf pelts with little talismans and stuff and wolf claws like ripping through people. That's badass, that's cool. But it also is a different mental image entirely from storming a ship, from like 6 Space Marines going onto a vessel filled with enemies and coming out the other side having achieved their objectives because they are just that resilient, they are that skilled, they are that tactical, they are just that good. Astartes emphasises that just that goodness way more than I think anything else I've seen. It's less about standing against a horde of enemies, you know, heroically holding a chainsword aloft and, you know, planting the banner and all of that stuff, which has its place, and more corridor by corridor, clearing out rooms one step at a time, taking advantage of the fact that you are essentially immune to small arms fire, actually utilising positioning to get the best possible result with the least damage. It's something that I didn't realise I think has been missing a little bit from the descriptions of what Space Marines are capable of. Like, I didn't think we were missing that until I saw it, at which point I kind of feel like that side of things doesn't get as much attention as like the heroic side of stuff. I mean, it still is heroic. The 4th episode, it's like, there is, as I say, there is one particular shot in that episode, which you'll see right now, which is framed so well, and it looks so good, and the build-up to that moment is, I think, one of the best examples of showing just what Space Marines are capable of. There is little things throughout the series that kind of show different approaches, and when it builds up to this particular moment, there's like so many little things that happen all the way through that build up to it. The use of bolters, I really like. It's like, if you actually watch it back, it, for the most part, full auto is not used until a certain point, and when full auto is used, there is obviously more recoil than before, and it's noticeable. Close combat weapons, for the most part, aren't used until it reaches a certain point where bolters aren't viable, and so close combat weapons are deployed. Instead of the entire thing being a guy running through hordes of enemies cutting them apart with combat knives, instead it is a tool save for a specific job. It's just so much more tactical. It's so much more tactical, and because of that, it's so much more dark, I think. And I'm not just talking in terms of the lighting, I'm talking the atmosphere as a whole for this series is the perfect mix of action and darkness. There's almost like a futility to this, in that you are watching these Space Marines just destroy everyone. There's no cries of anger, there's no shouting, there's no "for the Emperor," there's none of that. It is just silent, swift death from them. You get the sound of the guns, and you get the sound of, well, combat knives. But you don't hear them shout, you don't hear them scream, you don't hear them curse or do the whole "die, heretic" kind of thing. It's so chilling in the just in how focused and not heroic it is. It is just like watching a bunch of people get a messy job done, and I absolutely love it for that reason. It is like the pure focus and drive to just do this thing. These people need to die. They are now dead. That's it. There's no kind of shout of victory. There's no cry of anger or exasperation as things go wrong, or if things don't go to plan, or if injuries occur. There's none of that. It's just silence. Silence and death, which, again, you get plenty of death when it comes to Space Marines, but silence is not something that is traditionally thought of anymore. And just the way that they are represented in this particular project, I just struggle to think of something that represents them quite as well as this. It's as though someone went, let's try and make it so that if someone says, what's a Space Marine? You can just go, okay, sit there for 10 minutes. Well, like 7 minutes, actually. Sit there for 7 minutes, and you will know exactly what a Space Marine is and what they do. And it's fucking awesome because of that. The fact that the person making this clearly knows what they're doing in terms of like shot composition and lighting and sound design and animation. I mean, another thing in that fourth episode, it's very hard to visualize Space Marines actually moving. They move, at full speed in their armor. They are quick. They're lightning fast, even when fully plated up. That is a mental image that doesn't work. Something that heavy, that heavily armoured, moving that quickly just does not compute. It shouldn't happen, because they should be too heavy to do it. There should be too much weight. It just shouldn't be a thing that can be done. Actually showing that properly, it makes them even more terrifying. It's like as if it wasn't enough that they are holding, they are literally blasting people in half with a single shot. It turns out they can sprint over to you and stab you in the neck before you can blink. It's so well done. It represents them so well. And of all of there's so many really good fan projects out there. There are so many. And to put one above all the others, I don't think is fair. For instance, Hell's Reach is really, really good, but it's a different style. This is what I like about this. The fact that Hell's Reach does one thing, this does another thing. There will be another project that does something totally different. They all represent Space Marines in so many different ways, and yet altogether you get this complete picture. For me, though, Astartes filled in a gap that I didn't realise was a gap. It filled in that almost like what are they called? Raptors. Like the Raptors kind of style of fighting. Just, this is the mission, and that's it. It's just so good. It's so well done. And as I say, if you haven't watched it, you should go and watch it right now. It's absolutely fantastic. And I'm probably going to go back and watch it again, just because it's just so good. It's so good. I realise I'm just gushing endlessly. I don't give a shit. Every now and again you just see something that makes you think, that person has done an incredibly good job, and I am just glad that I got to see it. This is one of those things. Thank you very much for watching. As I've said repeatedly, the link to the things is in the description. Just go there. Don't do anything else. Go and watch it. If you haven't watched it, if you have watched it, go and watch it again, because I really don't need to say it again, but it's fucking great. So, thank you very much for watching. Feel free to click all of the things, all that stuff, video, Patreon, all that shit. Click it if you like, don't click if you don't want to, and I will see you for the next one. Toodaloo.